Attention signal, I am the person responsible for this channel and for that other channel. In this video, I present to you Not Our Language, my entry for the 4th edition of the cursed Conlang Circus. For context, it's a competition to make the most phonetically, grammatically, syntactically and semantically absurd, illogical, unusable and unlearnable Conlang that makes you start to doubt the very existence of communication, civilization, humanity, reality, meaning, purpose, thought and vocal cords. At least that's how I remember it. Best abomination wins, so if you want to give it a try yourself, please don't, I really want to win. Also, I try to include all the optional themes from all editions. Anyway, let's begin. In 1977, at the height of the Cold War and amid growing technological ambition, humanity launched 2 spacecraft, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, destined to leave the solar system. Each carried a golden disk, designed to last over 1 billion years. The Voyager Golden Record was created to carry a message to whatever or whoever might find it. For decades, the record drifted through space, until that day. Roughly 26,000 light-years away, on a planet named Omega Centauri A, which does not exist in real life, an extraterrestrial civilization detected the probe as it entered their star system. At first they thought it was just some crazy space dust, but after a while they realized it was a message from another world. Random images, unfamiliar symbols, strange sounds. This raised a lot of questions. What does this message mean? Who sent it to us? Why did they send it to us? Why am I wasting my time making this video? These questions remained unanswered for a long time. Finally, after 50 long and exhausting minutes, using phonetic repetition, tone patterns, and statistical inference, the researchers deciphered the contents of the record. And they did it correctly. Their dedicated work and effort put into the reconstruction marked the beginning of Not Our Language. This story as well as the visuals are supposed to prevent you from leaving this boring video. To begin with, once the initial decoding of the message was complete, attention turned to the internal structure of the language it conveyed. The alien linguists and mathematicians managed to isolate several repeated sound patterns in the message. These patterns were not just random gibberish, though the head of the research team insisted that they were. Among the recurring phrases, they found clusters of words that seemed to be variation of the same root. This prompted a dramatic breakthrough. They reconstructed 147 stem forms from the message, based purely on inflectional changes. These stems became the foundation of what was gradually recognized as a coherent lexicon. The language was determined to be highly synthetic. Prefixes, suffixes, infixes, and probably some other fixes were all over the place. Morphological stacking was common, and the density of information encoded within individual words suggested a language optimized for compact expression. However, the truly significant structural revelation came later. Upon broader analysis, it became evident that the language does not maintain clear categorical boundaries between traditional parts of speech. No clear distinction could be found between nouns, verbs, adjectives, or adverbs. The same word could mean life, live, or alive, depending entirely on its surrounding grammatical morphology. There was also an interesting interaction observed at the deeper level of the system that may have far-reaching implications. I forgot to end this sentence in the script. Naturally, as with any functional linguistic system, Not Our Language exhibits a broad and consistent set of grammatical inflection strategies. These strategies are neither unusual nor particularly noteworthy, merely the expected outcome of a language developed by rational beings with a healthy respect for semantic precision. The language employs a multi-channel inflectional system making use of several well-established mechanisms: affixation, ablaut, raising and lowering, and place of articulation switching. It goes without saying that all lexical items, regardless of their contextual syntactic role, whether functioning as verbs, nouns, adjectives, or adverbs, inflect according to the standard core grammatical parameters. Polarity defines the truth alignment and rhetorical stance of the sentence. Volition indicates the degree and source of control behind an action or state. Volition is also the main domain in which the language elegantly showcases its non-affectional morphological processes. Not every language utilizes internal phonological transformations to mark shifts in volitional context. These transformations are applied to relevant words and are deeply embedded in the morphophonemic logic of the language. Mirativity conveys whether the information is surprising or expected. Evidentiality marks the epistemological basis for the speaker's statement. Definiteness describes the reference identifiability and proximity. Modality encodes the speaker's attitude towards the necessity, desirability, or obligation of the action. Reflexivity describes the relationship of the action to the subject. Number quantifies or dequantifies the referent. Following the elegant principles of linguistic minimalism, Not Our Language uses a strikingly concise yet remarkably comprehensive case system, limited to the most essential and crucial 158 semantic relationships. While this may appear insufficient to speakers of structurally complex languages, it is in fact an example of pure rationality and linguistic perfection. Yes, this language has more noun cases than it has words. Besides these 26 cases, there are additional 132 dedicated to expressing motion and spatial relationships, as outlined in the table you are currently looking at. Cool, right? Not Our Language exhibits a certain degree of syntactic freedom, reflecting its synthetic and morphologically dense nature. In contrast to languages where grammatical relationships are tightly constrained by constituent order, this language encodes such rules entirely through morphological means. This results in a system where word order is nearly unrestricted not only between main clauses and phrases, but even within subordinate clauses and coordinated sentences. The reliance on morphology rather than word order effectively dissolves traditional syntactic hierarchies. Instead, the language's syntax uses pragmatic ordering, where the linear sequence of words serves discourse and information structuring functions, such as marking focus, topicality, or contrast. The numeral system is based on the complex base -2 imaginary units. Unlike conventional base systems, this base uses complex numbers as place values, enabling compact representation of numbers with both real and imaginary components integrated into a single numeral. The language uses 4 distinct numerical digits, conventionally represented as 0, 1, 2, and 3. But these are not symbols in Not Our Language. Numbers are always expressed as words, each corresponding to a specific value. Each numeral word encodes 2-digit places of this base in a single lexical item. For example, the sequence 1, 3 represents one lexical number word, which corresponds to the complex value -2i plus 3. From here, numerals with 3 or more digit places become morphologically complex compounds, built from these base lexical units. This system efficiently encodes complex numbers while maintaining a manageable lexicon. The discovery and decoding of the exoplanetary language triggered one of the most significant sociolinguistic revolutions in recorded history. The population of Omega Centauri A did what any rational civilization would do in their position. They panicked. At first, the new language was treated as a curiosity. It was taught in a handful of research institutions and linguistic forums. But things escalated rapidly. Within 3 months, Not Our Language had spread to schools, then to entertainment media, and eventually to official government proceedings. Everyone was horrified, then fully fluent. Everything else became dialectal dust, linguistic sediment buried beneath a sleek, compact monolith of undeniable syntactic and semantic beauty, simplicity, and efficiency. The old tongues evaporated, leaving behind only a few faint traces in the form of loanwords. The language's grammar and syntax experienced subtle yet profound changes, enriching its expressive impressiveness. One key development is that inflectional markers, once strictly tied to their root words, can now attach to any word in a sentence at any position within that word in any order. This radical flexibility dissolves rigid morphological boundaries, allowing inflections to spread freely and create intricate layers of grammatical meaning throughout the sentence. As sentence length is not limited, this means the number of possible forms of a single word is, in effect, infinite. Moreover, inflectional markers may now be fused into zero realization, forming words composed entirely of pure grammatical function without any lexical root. These ghost structures carry meaning through the interaction of affixes alone. The syllable stress always falls on the first affix within a word, and the emphasized word is always positioned third in a sentence, even if it requires the insertion of affix-only structures with no stem. It demonstrates not only real syntactic freedom, but also strategic freedom. Additionally, a novel 5-class word categorization system was introduced, which influences case inflection and syntactic behavior. The names of these classes are loanwords from one of the ancient, irrelevant languages of the past, and loosely translate to yellow, Ministry of Education and Science, gravity, insurance, and hypothetical situations that never actually happened. Crucially, as in every rational, self-respecting language, the assignment of words to these classes is completely random and arbitrary, based on absolutely nothing. There is no semantic, phonological, or syntactic logic behind which words fall into which class, making the system enigmatic and unpredictable. The phonology of the language originally featured a highly complex sound system that posed considerable difficulties for the aliens. Their vocal limitations made many of the original sounds nearly impossible to pronounce. As a result, the language underwent a natural simplification process over time, evolving into a more streamlined and intuitive phonology. This simplification, while improving ease of articulation, also resulted in the large-scale loss of minimal pairs, with many once distinct words collapsing into identical forms and leaving disambiguation entirely to context. The process is documented through the following carefully recorded and entirely reasonable sound changes: high-low nasal epenthesis, final U-drop, intervocalic nasal hardening, lateral velar sibilation, Q loss, aspirate click shift, stop adjectivization, tap assimilative labialization, affricate retroflexion, labiodental glide shift, mid-vowel lowering, labiodental flap shift, glottal click shift, rhotic shift, palatal uvular click shift, palatal lateral glide, near-high front centralization, sibilant rearticulation and fusion, lateral frication, plosive delimited vowel loss, back rhotic shift, nasal rearticulation, nasal high front vowel lowering, back centralization, fricative conditioned palatal click shift, long vowel diphthongization, and vowel cluster monophthongization. After that, the language underwent an inevitable event associated with evolution: mutation. Consonant mutation is a process where a consonant changes depending on its grammatical, morphological, or syntactic environment. But here, mutation works slightly differently. It's an active and heritable recombination of phonological traits. Unlike usual mutation systems, it applies to both extreme phonemes at the boundary between words. Each parent phoneme passes on its alleles, representing place of articulation, manner, roundness, airstream mechanism, and voicing to offspring phones. Every category operates on a strict dominance recession axis, determining which trait survives in the offspring. Because each phoneme carries a single fixed value in every category rather than paired alleles, the outcoming phone is easily predictable, with a few exceptions. Some phonemes lack a clearly fixed place of articulation, making their inherited place unpredictable without additional rules. If at least one parent belongs to this group, inheritance follows a classic heritability table rather than the normal dominance rules. In such cases, there is no certainty which place allele will compete in the offspring. Natural randomness breaks the predictability and final phone emerges from a probabilistic outcome rather than a fixed rule. Following the phonological mutations, a remarkable articulatory process emerged, referred to in the literature as consonant decay. In this process, consonants gradually lose stability as they occur further in a word until they are entirely deleted from the spoken form. Stability is determined by articulatory position. The further back and lowered consonants are, the longer their half-life is. Once a consonant reaches its half-life within a word, it disappears. Among the more usual processes in a language is one known as phonetic redux, a bidirectional voicing and tension alternation triggered by specific vowel environments. It's entirely predictable and operates with mechanical regularity. When a consonant is positioned between an oxidizer and a reducer, the two effects cancel each other out entirely, producing no change. This neutral environment is a noted feature in phonological teaching materials. Following the emergence of consonant decay and phonetic redux, a further process was documented, formally known as vocalic radiation. In this phenomenon, certain vowel particles emit influence over neighboring consonants, altering their phonemic stability index. Alpha particle bombardment induces a sudden and severe reduction of the consonant's phonemic number by precisely 4 units. Beta particle bombardment produces a comparatively modest increase of 1 unit. When a consonant is positioned between an alpha particle and a beta particle, the effects combine into a net reduction of 2 units. This interaction occurs exclusively when the vowels in question originate from affixual material, and it applies solely to consonants that are part of the lexical stem, ensuring that the system remains both highly systematic and completely unnecessary. As part of the language's ongoing evolution, a set of 12 special signals emerged to enhance communication efficiency and nuance, especially in rapid or complex exchanges. These signals function as standalone vocal markers, each carrying a distinct pragmatic role. As in the vast majority of sapient communicative systems, the principal medium of message transfer is wave. Two primary varieties dominate: sound waves and electromagnetic waves. Since the sonic channel has already been covered earlier in detail, we now turn our attention to the second form, electromagnetic waves, or more precisely, writing. The writing system of Not Our Language employs a basic inventory of 53 letters, each manifesting in 3 distinct cases: uppercase, middle case, and lowercase. The rules for these are, naturally, perfectly logical. The visual form of the letters is dictated entirely by the base method of inscription, biting rocks. Only perfectly round, flawlessly smooth, absolutely flat stones are allowed to be used. Every bite leaves a permanent alteration, meaning a single misbite irreversibly ruins the text, the rock, and the author's day. The only solution is to discard the rock and begin anew. Orthography is fully historical, preserving the pronunciation of the earliest reconstructed proto-version of the language. The sole exceptions are loanwords, which retain the spelling conventions of their source languages, and special signals. Layout rules are incredibly simple. All inscriptions begin at the center of the rock. Writing proceeds along concentric letter shells, each accommodating a maximum number of letters determined by this self-explanatory formula. The direction of writing is dictated by pragmatic and aesthetic principles. Emphasized words are always written first in a sentence. In the first sentence, emphasized words are written clockwise, all others go counterclockwise. After each sentence, the writing direction for all words reverses. Within each word, all consonants are written before any vowels, except affixes which appear at the start of the word in their original morphological form, but in reverse order. In formal texts, calligraphy, as well as in hastily scribbled notes, letters frequently flow into one another, sometimes within the same shell, sometimes across shells, producing true works of art. But language is not just about waves. No, no, no. Much like on Earth, this species developed another way to communicate. What might be a bit shocking, they use electric charges, transmitted by specialized tentacles. Each electric charge corresponds to a single phoneme, except it doesn't cover sound changes which happened after the long vowel diphthongization or morphological changes resulting from volition, except for upload, which apparently is present. The charges themselves come with a set of properties: polarity, modality, and texture. Altogether, they create exactly 40 unique signals, which, by pure coincidence, is 5 too many. Despite all these electrifying complexities, the order in which these charges are pronounced follows the exact same sequence as the spoken phonemes. Several days after the alien civilization had fully adopted not our language, a team of archivists revisited the Voyager record. While reviewing its contents, they stumbled upon something extraordinary, an image so profoundly perfect that it was immediately declared the most beautiful sight in the entire recorded history of their species. It was, as one historian later noted, the closest their species had ever come to collective spiritual enlightenment. Eventually, the aliens decided that such a masterpiece demanded acknowledgement. Using not our language, confidently believing it to be an exact match to what they had received from the probe, they composed a transmission, certain that the original sender would understand every single word without the slightest ambiguity. This reply was then broadcast towards the precise point in space from which the Voyager probe had arrived, a location they confidently believed still contained the senders, despite having no understanding of planetary motion, lightspeed delay, or the possibility that the original senders might be long extinct. Prions, Rayem, Parang, Vak, Yamut. Resau, Nuhin, Nuhin, Mutan, Ntohut, Rasarut. Yar, Rekait, Zin, Amun, Yarun, Nkirak, Urt, Sepin, Fin, Sapurt, Nej, Jarut, Rap, In Sa Memamun. Ajakreft, Maier, Ruhr, Rutsten, Nayam, Rumut, Harut, Lot, Remu, Lotsl, Las, Ut, Inut, Mun, Namur, Raz, Lchum, Saruk, Shem, Yamun, Nyasar, Remwak, Uk, O, Hum, Marut, Ahab, Atyach, Rum, Rut, Mud, Amarashi, Lak, Rock, Raep, Us, Rot, Rek, Us, Samarut, Ach, Rumachui, Rur, Sarut, Katten, Neck. Ras, Sa, Marada, Ut, Zin, Zand, Tus, Sur, Amur, Ravuk, Omj, Jacques Hyde, Zim, Amon, Huik, Hultu, Huant, Hunge, Ntin, Ayarun, Nup, Amyarun, Yak Omet, Un, Nup, Rak, Un, Ravage, Jayamr, Rak, Hum, Sint, Dahu, Yair, Rek, Se turn suya. Never again.